Well, good afternoon, Central Georgia. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. Now, we have a lot of updates from the tropics, especially with Erin, as Erin has officially become our first hurricane of the season. And over the weekend, it should also intensify and potentially become our first major hurricane of the season with Category 4 strength possible. But the good news for Central Georgia is that it's looking more and more likely that we're not going to see any impacts from our area. But the thing that we're watching for is the potential impacts for the Atlantic coast. So I'll show you what we're seeing and what we're monitoring at the current moment. But right now, here is the latest from Hurricane Erin. It officially became a hurricane earlier today from the 11 o'clock update. It is just north of the Lesser Antilles. It's moving still slowly at a speed of west-northwest at a speed of 17 miles per hour, a direction towards the west-northwest. The pressure has been dropping, and typically when the pressure drops, that's a sign of a little bit of intensification within the storm. And the storm itself has become more organized, so we're seeing a more clear eye wall, and the storms have also come into place. And the winds haven't changed since the 11 o'clock update. Still has winds of up to 75 miles per hour. So today is the day where the intensification finally happened. Over the past couple of days, it was a low-wind tropical storm, especially on Wednesday. It had winds around the mid-40s, 45 miles per hour. Then as we reached Thursday, it came into an area where the water was warmer, and with warm waters, that's when the storms start to strengthen, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Hurricane Erin. So here is the track from the National Hurricane Center. So it's still a Category 1 hurricane, but once we get into the overnight hours, which should intensify into a Category 2 hurricane, and then notice this throughout the weekend, rapidly intensifying as it just finally arrived into that area of warm water. So by tomorrow afternoon, into a Category 3 hurricane, which is the official threshold of a hurricane reaching major hurricane strength. And then it should continue to strengthen as it moves a little bit northward on Sunday, as Category 4 strength is expected. Once it moves north and along the Atlantic coast, it should weaken a little bit as it encounters some wind shear. So changes in wind along the differences in the atmosphere. So by Wednesday, it should come close to the Atlantic coast as a Category 3 hurricane. So once again, here are the temperatures along the ocean. As I mentioned, over the past couple of days, it was in an area of cooler waters, still warm, but not as warm as the water near the Lesser Antilles. Notice once we get closer to the Caribbean, the temperatures start to increase in the ocean, so we start to see mid-80s. And then once we get just east of the Bahamas, just east of Nassau, so you're seeing a temperature around 87 degrees, so very warm there. So that's the reason why we're expecting it to rapidly intensify into a major hurricane around the area where you see the deep shaded red that shows 87-degree values. But once again, as you just saw with the hurricane track, it's expected to move northward with a curve over the weekend. And the reason why we're expecting a curve is because it's going in between two areas of high pressure. And actually it says Tropical Storm Erin there. Disregard that. I made this graphic on a Wednesday. I need to update this graphic for later updates. But it's now a hurricane getting close to the Lesser Antilles. But the reason why it's going northward is because it's going in between two areas of high pressure. And since a storm is just an area of low pressure, it's the polar opposites of the other systems, other high pressure systems. So because of that, it's going to move northward and thread the needle along the path of least resistance. So because of that, it's going to potentially go in between Bermuda and the eastern seaboard. Now here are the models. Here's the Euro model that shows all of the potential paths of Hurricane Erin. Notice almost every single model has this storm missing the eastern United States. We have one model, and we'll call this an outlier, that grazes the Carolinas, the Outer Banks region, but that's what we call an outlier. Notice we see great agreement that'll head and steer away from the coast. Now the question is it going to impact the island of Bermuda? Thankfully, we have most of the models having the storm go west of Bermuda, so threading the needle between Bermuda and the eastern seaboard. That's probably the most likely path. Here is the GFS ensemble model showing the exact same thing, almost identical to the Euro models. And this is what we love to see in terms of developing a forecast as we gain much more certainty after seeing model agreement. So this is increasing our confidence that we're not going to see anything in terms of impacts for the United States as a whole. Central Georgia, I was confident that we weren't going to see any impacts once we had an idea about the curve. And once that curve came into play, we knew that it'll be a lot harder for the storm to impact Central Georgia. But now it's looking more likely that it's not going to impact anyone in the United States. But the thing that we are looking out for, especially for the coast, is high rip currents. Rip currents are going to be high, and not high rip currents, strong rip currents, high surf. So the waves are going to be high along the Atlantic. So if you have any cruise plans, that might dampen those plans. It might make those make the trip a little shaky. So you may need a contingency plans if you have any cruise plans for over the course of the next 7 days. And if you're planning to go to the beach, especially Virginia Beach, Savannah, St. Simons, the Outer Banks, you may need to watch out for strong rip currents as well. But once again, for any inland impacts, Central Georgia, we're not going to see anything, thankfully. Once again, here's a look at the long-range future view. This shows, once again, a better view of the GFS model and the Euro model. GFS model is the thing shaded in green, and then the Euro model is the thing shaded in blue. It shows the blob. That blob is Hurricane Erin, and it's expected to make that curve northward by Monday. The Euro model, the model shaded in blue, has the storm nudged a little bit towards the west. GFS has the storm closer to Bermuda. But one thing that both models agree on is that it's going in between the island of Bermuda and the eastern seaboard. And then by Wednesday, that's when it will potentially come close to the Carolinas, as shown by the Euro model, but not seeing any direct impacts for any areas along the coast. By next Thursday, a trough of low pressure will pull Erin towards the northeast and away from any land. And at that point, it will completely become a fish storm. And it'll also disorganize at that point as the waters are a lot cooler towards the north along the Atlantic Ocean. So good news so far, seeing that model agreement and confidence that that no impacts are anticipated for the continental United States and for Central Georgia. Now, in other news, we were monitoring an area of development along the Gulf, and it had a 50% chance of development in the next 2 days and a 50% chance of development in the next 7 days. Once again, it was along the Texas coastline, and it was associated with a tropical disturbance. Now, as of 2 o'clock, that disturbance officially reached the Rio Grande Valley, so the border between Mexico and Texas. And as it's now shut off from the fuel from the warm ocean waters of the Gulf, the storms and the showers have subsided. So now it's no longer a threat for anyone along the Gulf. Originally, it was supposed to increase rain chances for places in Texas, so the hill country and the Texas coast as well, and also produce high surf. But now it's just it was what we call a nothing burger. This is not expected to bring anything, just some showers, not even going to bring storms for portions of inland Texas. So great news so far on this Friday afternoon. In terms of the hurricane frequency, For this season, we are behind schedule. It's August 15th, and we now have our first hurricane, but we are 4 days behind the average. The average hurricane starts or develops on August 11th. But in between the months of August and October, we average around 11 to 12 named storms. And it looks like we could be also a little bit below average in terms of the overall named storms from that period. We don't have any more potential areas of development behind this storm, and we also don't have any models showing us any potential storm in the next 7 days. So all of that is good, and we're hoping that this trend continues, especially as we reach peak hurricane season in the next couple of weeks. Peak hurricane season is on September 13th. So good news so far on this Friday. But if we do see any storm in the next couple of weeks, the next named storm is going to be Fernand. So that's the name for the letter F. Of course, Erin is the new hurricane, and then we'll get Fernand. The name after Fernand is going to be Gabrielle. So once again, great news so far, especially for Central Georgia and for the continental United States. So we'll be back later today, especially around 9 o'clock with another stream, especially if we see any changes along the models, if it has a storm nudged towards the west, getting closer to the coastline. But so far, the confidence is high that it will completely miss the United States. So hopefully you have a fantastic Friday, and we're also hoping that you have a great weekend ahead. Thank you very much.